ninth-round pick out of the Citadel in 1981, Stump carved out a successful NFL career with the Cardinals.
He's strong. He can move. He was agile. He can make guys miss. He had it all. He had everything in his game.
In Cardinals franchise history, only Larry Fitzgerald has more all-purpose yards.
He did it all, man.
Hello, Browns fans. Hello, NFL fans. And welcome everyone to the Stump Talk podcast, Running Back University, Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. We have the beautiful Saphyr, the nostalgic and historical figure, Stump Mitchell, the best producer on dry land, Russell Johnson, the dream team. We can't defeat the Michael Jordan dream team. We will run them up and down the court any day of the week. How's everybody feeling?
Good. I'm very happy to be here with Coach Stump and you and the behind the scenes guru, Russ.
Feeling excellent. Had a great weekend down in Florida at the Hula Bowl. It was great.
We had a great time. Russ and Coach Stump, I really enjoyed. We had football coming out of our ears. Honestly, I could do that for the rest of my life. And really good time listening to Stump and Russell. Just to let you know, Saphyr, they talk football day and night. Where I actually was starting to get sick of it. They have a little different engine than I do. Come to find out, but it was fun.
Yeah, it sounded like it was fun. I was trying to keep up with y'all on text, and that that picture of that fish looked delicious.
You know, I gotta poke at Coach Stump here. Me and Russ was laughing because once Stump hit an actual football field, it was like dropping a fish into a tank. You know, when the fish goes in there and it just swims around and goes. I said, Russ, look at Coach, and that truly is his element and his space, where he's the guy to sit back and watch him roam and going into football mode was it was a special moment. So I had a good time with that.
Awesome. Maybe next year a girl could dream to get a ticket to the Hula Bowl.
100%, 100%. That's what we were missing was that female voice to bring some calm. But we have the NFL playoffs. They came on. There's been some great games. Russ talked about how the games were going down to the wire. We got the Rams versus the Panthers. The Rams 34, Panthers 31. The Packers beat the Bears 27. I'm sorry, the Bears beat the Packers 31-27. The Bills on that next day of playoff action, the Bills beat the Jags 27-24. That was a close game there. The 49ers edged the Eagles 23-19. And then the Chargers had a tough time scoring against the Pats. The Patriots won 16-3. And then that final game yesterday on Monday, which is going to lead us into Coach Mike Tomlin. The Steelers lost 6-30 to the Texans. Coach, we're going to let you get us out the gate here. Playoff action, playoffs, and the coach firings. What's on your mind is a culmination of where we're at right now?
Well, it was just a different deal with the playoffs. Josh Allen not being worrying about Patrick Mahomes and a couple other guys. He went into Jacksonville, did what he had to do. I think something is going to become of that. It's going to be up for discussion again with that tush push because they actually picked him up and carried him about 10 yards into the end zone, which was a good thing for Jacksonville because it gave them more. They put it on the 1 yard line, but it gave them more of an opportunity to have the chance to go down and score. But unfortunately, Trevor threw an interception. So that was the way that game went. With the Bills and the Jaguars, with the Rams and the Panthers, the Rams just, outdid them. I think the Panthers had the opportunity to win, but wasn't able to close it in the end. And the Packers and the Bears, that's just a lack of defense. It all boils down to it when they come back and they can score over 20 points in the fourth quarter. The Packers, I think, tighten up because they knew the history of the Bears. They had done it several times this year. And the Bears, they just felt comfortable being in that position, knowing that they had to start scoring, but they also knew that they could end the scoring, and that's exactly what they did. The Chargers and the Pats, New England benefited from having the game at their place for one thing, and Everett just they just haven't been able to get over the hump. You know, they ended up firing the OC after that as well, Greg Roman. So, it's a tough situation, but you're going to have some Browns with that Cat game and the Texans game. You're going to have Jamaica on one side, and you're going to have Dearness Johnson and Ashton Grant on the other side. So there's still going to be some former Browns in the playoffs.
Sapphire, out of all those games, uh, first of all, do you have any comments on any of the games in particular?
Yeah, my takeaway was defense wins. And that's something I learned decades ago, and I actually saw that bear out. Please don't ask me about the Eagles game. You know, I'm a hard Eagles fan. That was really hard to see them like no offense, but yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. Defense wins games.
Well, the Eagles ended up firing the OC, which I feel pretty bad because there were opportunities where receivers dropped balls.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, they should have won that ball game. I think. Uh, AJ dropped a couple balls. The other receiver dropped some balls. It just didn't materialize for them. But they were in that game. Probably should have won that game. But again, you can't drop balls and expect to win the games, the close games. It's just not going to happen.
You know, I would totally agree with that. And what I will say is not just with the Eagles. I think I'm saying as a fan that we're in a place with the NFL where the narrative actually bears has more impact on decisions that are made versus the things that you know as an expert, Coach Stump. You know, all across the season, there have been little microaggressions from, South Philly fan, things like the way that the quarterback was playing, even in victory, right? A lot of questions about the play calling. And I just really think, as a result of just those two things, as an example, just the way the Eagles played, the players played, I think that really was like the final thing in terms of the decision that was made to separate from the offensive coordinator, even though it doesn't make sense.
Coach Stump, I want to ask you. Russ and I were watching the Panthers game. The receiver Horn dropped the ball on fourth down that uh, ended their season, and then we watched Brown, who had some complaints for the Eagles during the season about his touches. He dropped some key passes for the Eagles. Stroud, the quarterback for the Texans, I believe he had five fumbles and three turnovers. We were talking about that during the game, coach. So, in the football world, when you get down to the playoffs, coach, do you try to hone in on, the fundamentals, or do you try to hone in on anything? Turnovers is always a big deal, but they seem to be magnified, obviously, during playoff time. Is there anything you can do to clean up that week, or you think it's a lack of mental focus?
Listen, I started in the league under Coach Mike Holmgren, and the one thing he wanted to do, he told all coaches, make sure your players are not caught off guard by anything. Let them know where they stand, and also make sure you practicing your drills and everything, whether it's in the classroom or out on the field, to make those guys better. That's fine, but when it comes to a person attitude, his belief in himself, that's between him and God and the counselors that they have there at your facility to talk to these guys. Because CJ, when I looked at him, he mentally, he just didn't look like he was into it. He felt pressure when there was no pressure. I'm looking at his feet; they're not right. He was short on some passes. I just thought he wasn't there mentally, you know.
Mhm.
And personally, I think some coaches need to understand that you got a guy on the bench that's won some games for you in Davis Mills. Personally, I would have taken him out of the ball game, and because the defense was playing so well, but it just looked like he was going to give that game away. And I think the thing that made them stay was they got a fumble, big man turn it in to a touchdown, and then they came back and get a pick for a touchdown. But CJ really wasn't there mentally, and I think D'Amico, in my opinion, should be coach of the year. I think we was listening at a segment on ESPN or something like that in the car when we was in Florida, and they were talking
Mhm.
about the only coach that had been uh, to the playoffs for 3 years with a quarterback, and they didn't mention D'Amico and CJ. So that
Correct.
that 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 answer really wasn't totally right. Uh, but D'Amico has done an unbelievable job with CJ or whatever quarterback he's been operating with. He definitely, in my opinion, should be coach of the year.
Hey, Coach,
Sapphire.
I wanted to ask you a question about that because I was right there with you. He did not look like himself, but from a coaching perspective, what are the pros and cons of pulling your starting quarterback, not just in a game, but a playoff game as it relates to his confidence?
I'm not worrying about his confidence. I'm worrying about winning that game that day. Mills, when he played, he did great for them. He didn't lose any games. I think he played maybe 3 games and he won them all. He's a veteran guy. Okay, so he understands the first thing I got to do is protect the ball. You
Mm,
do not win a game normally when you've turned that ball over 4 times. They're the number one defense in
yes.
the league. That's the only reason they won that game. That's the only reason because the defense stepped up big time. CJ has to play better. I mean, they were running the ball. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised D'Amico didn't tell the offensive coordinator, just run the ball. Don't worry about it. Just run the ball. Let us punt.
Sapphire, looking at the Texans Steelers game yesterday, um, looking at Aaron Rodgers, Metcalf came back. We're going to get into Mike Tomlin and Harbaugh leaving the Ravens, but looking at that game, even though it ended up being 30-6, Steelers had a chance in that game late. Truth be told,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was incredible to watch the Houston Texans defense, the number 1 defense, according to the football defense stats for 2025, the number 1 ranked defense, allowing 93.7 yards per game, right? And when I thought about how I know Pittsburgh as a running team, you know, the Texans completely shut them down, and I think that was a big part of Rodgers not being able to get in any rhythm. I mean, those sacks, as soon as it kinda reminded me of, the Browns quarterbacks. As soon as they dropped back, the defense was on their back. It was just an incredible display of a very well coached, well, um, just their defense. I can't say enough about it. I think that was the biggest factor in the game. And I'll just say this, I just think the Steelers are getting old, and I think they should have been in rebuild mode probably at least 2 years ago, but it wouldn't have even mattered because that Houston's Texans defense, as Coach Stump just said, just pretty much won that game.
as a Browns fan, I'll go right back to you, Sapphire. As a Browns, and I'm forced to be a Browns fan. I told Coach he's the reason why I became a Browns fan. But
Yeah.
now that we're here in this market, we're going to cheer our team on. You look at the playoffs overall and look at the scores and some of the things that have happened. You almost feel like Coach had mentioned this earlier this year as well. I thought this was a year if we could have gotten the playoffs, we probably would have had a fighting chance had we righted the ship with our quarterback situation, our offensive line situation, because outside of the Texans defense, none of these teams are really super scary, right?
Mhm.
In terms of where they're just dominating in all phases of the game, right? And then you look at as we just discussed, Coach Sapphire with the turnovers, the drop passes. You know, the Steelers' offense was kind of paltry. They couldn't really generate anything. Um, so, Sapphire, do you feel like maybe this year was kind of we lost an opportunity to get to maybe not have a superb team and still make some noise for the Browns?
I would totally agree with that, and what you're describing is the way I felt in week 3. To me, it was as a fan, it was a wasted season, right? So, it's hard to see it because, you have a small window to utilize your assets when they're close to, like, their full potential, and then you gotta start thinking about father time. So, it was very challenging, and it was just disappointing this year to see that because I think the Browns really had an opportunity if, as Coach Stump has said very consistently, dealt with their primary needs on their offensive line and their quarterback situation.
Coach Stump, I want to ask you as a coach, an NFL coach for so many years, and even as a player, being on that side of being that close, because a lot of these victories this past week, Coach, were most of the games were between 4 to 7 points. Besides the Texans game and the Chargers Pats, but as a player or coach, how does it feel going into that locker room, feeling like maybe one slipped away, maybe one play made the difference? Have you been in that situation?
I've been in that situation more so um, as a coach than a player. When I was with Seattle, we played the Steelers in the Super Bowl, and that's a game that we could have and should have won. Sean Alexander was the MVP of the league that year. He led the league in rushing, and uh, we had gone to the playoffs before, and the fans had gotten all over Coach Holmgren. And when we went to the Super Bowl, Coach Holmgren, in my opinion, uh, showed what he could do as a head coach. He had already won the Super Bowl in Green Bay, but we dropped some balls. I mean, tight ends dropped some balls, wide receiver dropped some balls, and unfortunately, we didn't win the ball game. We didn't run it as much as the offensive lineman wanted us to run it. I think the score was 21-10 or something, but we had an opportunity to win that game and we didn't. I think you got to learn from your mistakes. Andrew Berry, in my opinion, has made a lot of mistakes. I mean, you don't get rid of the coaches that you got rid of and think you're going to be able to have a great season the next year when you bringing in new coaches and you got players that's been injured and not going to be able to take full participation in the offseason program or the training camp and be ready for the season. And now the second year, you do the same thing. You get rid of another offensive coordinator, another offensive line coach, and now the young men have to try to learn something else. They're 2 years older, all right, and it was a veteran line all the time. So you're just not going to have the opportunity. But had he said, "Okay, we're going to bring the coaching staff back, or we're going to at least bring Joe Flacco back." Joe said he was disappointed and surprised that he didn't even get an offer to come back to the Browns when
Right.
they didn't sign him. So when they did sign him this past year, you should have gone into training camp knowing he's our guy. We're not messing around. We're going to win this year. That's what we're going to do, and we'll attack everything else later. They tried to fix the defense, help the defense out, which they did. You have a defense playing the way they did. Had they had the game plan to let's go with Joe Flacco, let's get a couple offensive linemen in here. The running backs we have, they're pretty good. Jerome just averaged 5.4 yards forward, that is 5.4 yards a carry. But instead, they drafted two running backs. Didn't really help the offensive line out. Didn't really help the receivers out. Jerry Judy was coming off his best receiving uh, season in terms of yardage with the Browns, and it looked like nothing that had happened the year before. So Andrew definitely didn't play his hand right in any of that.
Coach, let's rewind some time. And Sapphire, I want you to talk about this. Coach, you mentioned when we went to the playoffs last, and we went to the final week of the season, and they decided to rest some players. Most of the players, the starters or whatnot, I don't know if they played one series or not. Coach, you'll remember better than I would, but uh, it looks like to me, based on what you told us, giving those players that time off, they came and they looked very rusty. Me and Russ was talking about that this past weekend as well. So I want to ask you, Coach, in Saphyr, going back to that Browns situation, when they didn't look like they were fully prepared or fully engaged or whatever that was, Coach, you think having that time off, you're in a rhythm for 16, 17 weeks, with your diet and your training, your routine and your home life or whatever's going on, you come down that stretch and you're sitting home for a week, even in the college football playoff. How much of an impact, Coach, do you think that matters? And, how do you prepare players if you got that week off? And can you interject and talk about that week that they gave the Browns off, that Stefanski gave the Browns players off? And
Yeah.
I think it cost us that playoff game.
First of all, I'd like to say hello to Gene. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. I would say that giving those guys that time off, everybody that's a Brown fan saw what the results were. We were off just a little bit. I mean, we brought a new quarter. We played on Thursday night. We brought a new quarterback in that was there Friday to start our final game instead of going with one of the quarterbacks that we had on the roster. But the more importantly, we gave certain players, Joe being one, David and Joko being another, some defensive guys, other players. We gave them almost 7 days off without doing anything. Something that was really not heard of. Bill Callahan advocated for not doing it, but Kevin wanted to do it anyway. So that's what we did. He's the head coach. And playing in Houston, we were just a step behind in everything that we did. And it was simply, in my opinion, because Joe Flacco had everyone in Cleveland and all of Ohio that wasn't a Bengals fan up in arms about the way he played. Everybody was energized. I mean, he gave everybody new life. Players would do whatever he wanted them to do, which was remarkable. I thought really, with a guy that had been to the Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl, he brought the leadership at that particular point in time that we needed. So there was nothing that those players wouldn't have done for him. But again, we gave him all that time off, and we were just a step behind in everything.
Sapphire, do you remember that playoff game particularly?
Yes, I didn't. I was not kind to people that day. It really bothers me. And without coach even sharing that's what happened. They gave those men that time off, and that's coaches and players. You could see that they were short. And I'm going to use the example in even last night's game. DK Metcalf was out 2 games, I think. And I think it was that late in first quarter. I think it was like a, I don't know, second and long, maybe second and 10. And he ran that corner route, and he slipped behind Stingley Jr. Rodgers hit him right in stride, and he dropped that ball. Now, I'm not saying that because of that, the Steelers lost the game, but things like that are like momentum shifts. They're inflection points in the game. And I just think that even 2 weeks off, people don't appreciate how much these men, they practice, like you say, they watch what they eat, they have a routine they stick to. It's timing, it's muscle memory. Even 2 games can cost that performance level that you become accustomed to, like the players themselves. And while DK owned that, to me, that's an example of what happens when you get out of the flow, the routine of how you go about your business and how it can impact the game.
Coach, I want to ask you about that, and because we saw a lot of sloppy. I don't know if necessarily it was sloppy football, but me and Russ was sitting there while we watched Trevor Lawrence. Jen just made a comment about that. You the superstars, the quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is getting paid a lot of money. Loved him in Clemson. I actually liked the kid. Our guy from the Panthers. We just seen some poor execution, Coach. I seen so many drop balls this past weekend. playoffs that I care to remember. And these kids, these guys, I should say, that play football. They play football for a living. Their kids go to private school. They have a nice home, and that's all we expect from them is just to execute on game day, coach. And so, do you think it's a lack of focus? You think it's a lack of continuity, or is this just how? Is this another normal week in the NFL, coach, as far as making mistakes and not executing?
I think it's another week in the NFL, and none that the coaches that or the team that they're playing on want them to have. But I mean, you've seen guys drop balls. My deal is that they start the game off early, going with DK. He dropped the ball, but then later in the game, I mean, he disappeared. They took him out. They actually took him out of the game. The plays in which he caught, he was wide open. Why don't you go back to him? They didn't cover him the first time. Go back to him. And I thought they would have had the opportunity to beat Houston, but they took him out of the game for the most part. Yes, that would have been a big play, no question about it. It would have put them at least in field goal range. First down, they get an opportunity to move the ball, but they didn't. They didn't go back to him. So just like the last play with Philly, I mean, you got to give AJ an opportunity. He's one on one, or your receiver outside is one on one. You throwing to the tight end because you know he's going to catch it, but you're throwing it into traffic. There's three guys there. You got to try to give AJ an opportunity to let the officials make a call, and it didn't happen. So uh, players at the end of the day, they gotta make plays. Uh, AJ dropped some balls, no question about it. Other receiver dropped some balls, but at the end of the day, you got to give him an opportunity, I think, to try to make a play for you.
Well, Sapphire and Stump, I think that leads us into. Um, it felt like Black Monday yesterday, even though Black Monday had already passed us because you wake up and check your feed to see who lost their job. There's 9 vacancies right now at the head coaching position. Um, we just talked to Russ and Stump about no one's getting hired right now, uh, possibly because the playoffs are still going on. There's still coaches that have current jobs like Soleil and some other guys that are going to be out there. Coach Mike Tomlin, 19 years. We've been talking about him the last few weeks in regards to will he keep his job. I don't know if they fired him and let him walk away. Coach, I'll let you expound on that. But you got Harbaugh, and Tomlin. I think are two AFC North coaches, 18 years, 19 years of tenure. What are your thoughts on the Mike Tomlin situation, Coach? Do you think he was shown the door? Do you think he was at a point where he knew it was time to go do something else with football?
No, I don't think Mike was shown the door at all. I think the Rooney's allowed him to do whatever that he decided to do. I think uh, he just felt as though no matter how much you want to do something, if you believe in God, then He's going to show you the way in and out, wherever that may be. And Mike, the last 7 years, he's taken that team as far as he could take it. Unfortunately, it was only what 17 or 18 games, one playoff game. He couldn't win it for whatever the case may have been, and several of those games have been right there at their stadium. If you're losing on the road, that's one thing, but you're winning a division and you're losing those games at home, that's a totally different thing. So at some point in time, you got to say, is it the team? Is it me? Or have I taken this team as far as God wanted me to take it? And now am I going to step out the way and let these guys achieve everything that they possibly can? Being a head coach, I was at Morgan State for the most part. I took that program as far as I could do. There was a lot of issues. Only 33 scholarships when it should have been 62. Uh, using the guys' pill, uh, not having the amount of coaches that I should have had. I got offered an opportunity to be the running back coach for the Chiefs, and then I went back to Dr. Richardson. He wanted me to discuss the conversation that I had with Marty Schottenheimer before I made my decision. I told him exactly what I needed. I needed my 62, 63 scholarships. He said, I'll give them to you. I told him I needed my full allotment of coaches. He said, I'll give them to you. I said, I need to give these guys a Pell back. He said, I got to talk that over with the administration. He came, I said, you got until 10:30 because I got a press conference. I had to call Marty Schottenheimer back and tell him that I wasn't taking a job because of the concessions that Dr. Richardson had made. The next year, I got a call to come to Seattle for Mike Holmgren. And when I went to Mike Holmgren, the only question he asked was I taking the job? I said, are you offering me the job? He said, no, I'm not offering you the job. He said, I'm not offering you the job because you told Marty Schottenheimer you was taking the job and you didn't take it. Unless you tell me you're taking this job and signing it today, then I'm not offering it to you. I said, well, I'm gonna take the job. He said, well, I'm offering it to you. And it was my time. I accomplished all that I could have done there at Morgan State by getting those things that the players wanted, and I passed it on. It was time for me to leave. Same thing at Southern University. We had issues there, but Southern had they not fired me, I would be the Southern University right now because I love their fan base. I love coaching, recruiting the New Orleans area and whatever areas that I went to, Memphis, where alumni was calling and say, "You got this player." I put coaches in position to run that program and to win. I just didn't get the wins, but I put everything together because God gave me the insight and the people to make it happen and the players that made it happen. So sometimes you accomplish all that you can or all that God wants you to accomplish. You have to feel satisfied and then you have to move on and see what else He have planned for you in your life.
Coach, please. I mean, I think this is so important what you're just saying to people because it really is like a blueprint for life. Sometimes people take failure like in such a personal way, they cannot see that it's a growth moment, it's an opportunity moment to take those learnings and move forward. And I want to ask you this because this is the first that I've heard that you actually also recruited.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a part of it. In college, you have to recruit. Right now, it's totally different in college because now you're recruiting with money. That's what they're recruiting with right now. Kids don't care about anything else. Show me the money. And that's the big deal. But back then, it was you know, some guys may have been at the bigger colleges. You always hear that people was getting paid under the table and all of that. I don't know anything about that. I mean, they never paid at HBCUs because they didn't have that type of backing from a majority of the alumni, so they didn't have that money to do stuff like that. And I don't know if they're paying them at HBCUs now, but it was a great opportunity for me.
Amazing.
Sapphire, I have a question that I want you to expound on. Given the state of Mike Tomlin and Harbaugh, Coach had mentioned earlier, Harbaugh was probably 3 plays away from being in 3 more Super Bowls, right? I think it was Andrews dropped the pass. The kid
Hmm.
number 4 with the fumble, I think last year. He's 3 plays away from this whole entire coaching career. The Ravens being different, right? And then now we're looking at Mike Tomlin. To me, Aaron Rodgers just did not look like he was giving them a whole lot. Uh, uh, as a starting quarterback, and they went through that fiasco with getting him into camp late. He kind of almost put his career on the line dealing with Aaron Rodgers. So, Sapphire, how much do you think that really it just came down to personnel and players not executing as opposed to what Coach just said, a coach, needing a new voice in the locker room?
I mean, to your point, what you just said about the whole thing, even getting him in the training to training camp, I feel like, and I'm old school. The inmates should not run the asylum, and I really think that Mike Tomlin let go, and just with all due respect to him, to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is still a player, but I think that Mike Tomlin pretty much gave him free will. And I always wondered about the psychology of those his team members. Because when you don't have a standard for everyone to follow and you let one person do things that other people are not allowed to do. I just wonder inside that locker room what kind of impact that had, because I specifically remember, I can't remember I think he was a cornerback. His reference to Rodgers the previous year when he said something to the effect of, "I don't want that cancer in the locker room." Not that fans know what goes on between players, but for me, it was clear that Aaron Rodgers was held to different standards. And I actually thought, as I watched those Steelers games over the year, Mike Tomlin didn't look well in terms of his health, right? And you add on the years they had been there, and we don't know what he was working with within the organization, if they didn't want to spend the money or not. But it just seemed like he didn't look physically well. So I'm not surprised when I learned that he had walked away. I'm not surprised. I never even thought that he didn't walk away, because that was actually a conversation that at least I was hearing here in the Cleveland market. The question of whether it would be that the Steelers would terminate him or he would decide to walk away. So I hope I answered your question about, as great as Aaron Rodgers they say he is and all of that, there's a lot that comes with that type of, personality. And Coach Stump has talked about this previously as well when he talked about, Baker Mayfield. But I think it was a failed experiment. And I actually do think it probably was one of the biggest reasons why Mike Tomlin said he's had enough. He just, let me
Well,
just go take a break.
Coach Stump, let's not forget, Aaron Rodgers got Saleh fired in New York, who looks like to me to be a very competent coach. He's going to be one of the hot coaches. I believe he got that GM fired out there in New York as well. I really didn't understand why he put the bank on Rodgers, given he was, kind of an organizational killer at this stage of his career. Obviously, in Green Bay, he's a Hall of Famer. What are your thoughts on that, Coach? Would you have put your career on the line for an aging quarterback that, especially coming out of what happened with that Jets organization?
Well, I'm not going to say I wouldn't, because Aaron Rodgers has proven that he could play in both places. I mean, unfortunately, you just don't know what's going to happen from one day to the other. Unfortunately, he got hurt in New York early, okay, tore his Achilles, and then he came back, and it just didn't work out the next year. So that's unfortunate. Uh, he's proven that he's a player. Cam Hayward spoke out before he came. He wasn't worrying about Aaron Rodgers. He said either he's going to be a part of us or he not. We're going to win. That's the bottom line. Uh, I really liked Justin Fields when he was playing, but they had already made the commitment that they were going to go with Russell. I always take a look at, man, I'm gonna pray every day and see what happens, and I'm gonna let God decide what we're gonna do here. You know, it so happened that Russell, unfortunately, but fortunately, it depends on how you look at it and what you believe. He got hurt before the season started. Now Justin Fields is like 4-6 and rolling and playing pretty good. Got you in first place in the division, as a matter of fact. But now you put him on the bench and you go with Russell. Russell wins some games. Yeah, he throw the ball downfield, but at the end of the day, he didn't get what they needed from him. Now Justin goes to New York. It's not working out as good, but it's a totally different scenario. You have to live in the present. You have to judge guys by where they are now, what they're doing here, and be satisfied with it. And I think that was something that didn't happen. I thought Aaron played pretty good yesterday. I mean, he can't afford to have balls drop. No, he can't move in the pocket, but he can throw the ball. He kept them in the game. The game got away right there at the end. It wasn't like the final score indicated it was. So Aaron
Uh,
was a guy that had experience, in some places that's what you needed.
Coach,
Unfortunately, it didn't work
I,
out.
I have a question about the Ravens. I think there's some light there regarding the non-use of Lamar Jackson. I know he had some injuries this year. Uh, it seems to me the weight of that relationship in the organization and and even with Monken, uh, how much weight do you think is there as far as uh, Lamar Jackson being unhappy that forced the organization to tell Mr. Harbaugh to change his staff up? How much do you think Lamar Jackson had to do with that?
Well, listen, I respect John Harbaugh, okay, because he knows he can't do it alone. And he was not going to change his staff, affect the life of a whole lot of other people because a player was dissatisfied with something. John realized that he won those games that he won because of the people that worked with him. Okay. Uh, John didn't miss a kick. Okay. John didn't drop balls in the playoff games. The coaches put players in position to make the players in order for them to be successful. And John appreciated the work that those guys did. Unlike Stefanski getting rid of coaches when they put players in the same position to make plays. Okay. When they allowed him to become head coach twice of the year, when he definitely shouldn't have been head coach the year that D'Amico's first year in the league, when he
100%
when he beat us in the playoff game, and when he went on the road to Indianapolis to
in
win
one
the
game.
final game to win the championship. You got a rookie head coach who had been replacing two black head coaches who was fired the two previous years. And now he goes in there and with a rookie quarterback, and he win the division the last day of the season, and he also beat us in the playoff game. But Kevin got coach of the year. I mean, he thought he did all those things by himself. He didn't stand up for any of his coaches. He allowed them to get released of their duties.
Coach, there's certain subjects that I like to leave alone just because I try to play the side of being politically correct. A lot of that is because of uh, yourself and understanding the work you've done. But I have to ask you, in Sapphire as well, Russ, if you want to interject, if you look at the available coaches that are in this carousel that they're throwing around, and then you look at there's a lack of African Americans, black people being considered for these OC jobs, coach. And I'm at a point you look up, they always got some kid with a shaven face, with his hair combed to the side, and you like, well, who is this guy? Where is he? And it's like they're going to give him, we're going to see where these jobs land. But coach, we talked about the Ashton Grants. There's kids out there. I know there's some kids out there besides the Brian Flores and some of the prominent coaches, but it seems like there's always this new crop of I'm calling them nerds, right? It is what it is. I don't have anything to hide in what I'm thinking. These new batch of kids coming up, coach, that come from these analytical backgrounds and the way they approach the game. Is where are all the African American defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators that are being considered for all these openings?
Well, defensive coordinators or head coaches that have been defensive coordinators, those guys don't have a problem or didn't have a problem giving minorities a chance to be defensive coordinators. But I don't think any of them have afforded an African American or a minority the opportunity, or many minorities the opportunity to be offensive coordinators. Uh, but if you don't own nothing, you don't control anything. If I'm an owner, I'm going to hire who I want to hire. That's the bottom line. I don't care what color they are, and I don't care how you feel about it. That's what I'm going to do. I mean, they put in Rooney rules where you got to interview minorities. That's a slap in the face, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, all I got to do is talk to two minorities, and I've satisfied that rule. That's no good, you know. But I think Ashton Grant, who was there in Cleveland, had the opportunity to work. Vrabel had the opportunity to see him work, and now he's coaching Drake May in New England, a guy that was right there in your building, and you looking for an offensive coordinator. but yet you bring somebody in you don't know much about other than what they have done, but up close and impersonal, you don't know anything about them. Okay. And you trying to execute the same system, then Ashton Grant is right there. And he had been under your tutorage for 4 years. But yet Rabel can come in and see this guy work and make him his dang on quarterback coach. And you know Rabel know a lot of people of all color, but yet he took Ashton, who grew up under the Haslams, but yet Stefanski couldn't see that this guy had it all.
Sapphire, what are your thoughts on that? I know you can. I know you got a deep dive into this.
You know, it's a lot. And again, I'll speak as a fan. I will say this. I'm going to defer to Coach Stump's perspective on this and just say this. Sports is a microcosm for what is going on in the greatest country on this planet. And this is an unfortunate situation. I've got, you know, a number of coaches of color, not just black, but brown. And we can even go back to Norm Chow, okay, if you want me to really date myself. You got a lot of talent. And I think coaches like Mike Vrabel that just care about winning and care about putting the best resources that are available on his team, they have it right. So that's really all I want to say about this issue.
Okay,
Well, I'll
we're
take it even further. Forget about even position coaches, running back coaches. They don't
yes, sir.
even get the opportunity to be head coaches, and we deal with probably the second most divas on the team, besides the wide receivers. To be perfectly honest,
Hmm.
when the Haslams, when Freddie Kitchens got fired, the Haslams interviewed each coach. Then they didn't do it this time when they fired when Stefanski fired people. But the first time when they fired Freddie Kitchens, they interviewed the Haslams. Mr. Jimmy and J Dub interviewed every coach, and I sat there and I told them, they asked me if I thought Baker Mayfield could win. I'm like, absolutely, if you can win Baker. I'm like, absolutely, you can win with Baker. I said you just got to know how to control him. I said, name me the head coach. Let me be your head coach, and I guarantee you we'll win, because it's all about dealing with people, being able to deal with people. Guys want to win, but they also want to see that you can handle individuals. We had situations with Baker and Odell that never should have even happened. Never should have happened, because I made them aware of what was going on. I made Kevin aware. I made AVP aware of what was going on. Uh,
Mm.
Odell was in California, and there was Cam Newton was throwing out in California. Odell attended a throwing session, but Baker was having a throwing session in Texas maybe a week or two later, and Odell didn't attend that, but it was posted on social media, and Baker got a little sensitive to it. Odell was in California rehabbing for the most part,
Hmm.
and that just didn't go well. It didn't go well. But and I met with Odell and I met with Baker, and I told him we needed to straighten things out, because can't be sensitive to it.
Yep.
But that's the way it is. You have to handle these guys one on one and not be afraid to say something to them. Kevin, he just wasn't the leader that they needed in that locker room.
Well, Coach, I want to take another angle to that. Uh, we have that angle with giving minority opportunities at some of these coordinator jobs, which will some of those jobs lead to head coaching jobs. But the other aspect of that, Coach, is football people. I put up a social media post. I really enjoyed watching you and John Gruden interact, and it was like those are two football guys, right? And regardless of what's going on, what happened with Gruden and the Raiders organization, and whatever happened there, Coach, one thing I think we can say, he's a football guy, and I don't think analytics comes into play if it's 3rd and 1. I don't think he's going to go look at a chart and look at the percentages of and run a double reverse to a wide receiver, right? And so, with that being said, Coach, looking at the next level, and these coaches that are going to get some of these jobs. It looks like Harbaugh, uh, uh, Coach Mike Tomlin, Saleh, some of these guys that are at the top of the list. One thing that I see that is common, those are football guys, right? And I appreciate Stefanski because of the time that you were there, Coach. I just look at it as a blessing to be able to have you here, and I give him a little bit of, he was with you, so I never try to bash the guy, but I let the door hit him, and don't. I hope he don't ever look back because he seemed to mismanage people and not understanding what he had in his staff, Coach. But looking at some of these jobs, do you think that some of these owners and GMs, if you will understand to bring in football guys as opposed to an Ivy League graduate?
Well, take nothing from anybody, but the Haslams made Stefanski keep me on. Okay, that wasn't he had no choice in that matter, and
I changed my mind then. There
that's
you
the
go.
thing. That's the thing. Now, some of these uh, teams they're going to pick your staff as well. It's not like it used to be in the past. I came under Coach Holmgren. Nobody was going to tell him who he was gonna pick. He did his own thing. But some of these staffs now are set up by the general manager, not necessarily by the head coach. That will not be the case if they were to hire someone like Mike Rabel. He picked his own staff. If they're gonna hire somebody like John Harbaugh, he's gonna pick his own staff. Uh, and I would say, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin gonna do whenever he wants to coach. He's gonna do his own thing. So I just think it's how the organization handles stuff for the most part.
Sapphire, I have a question for you. How much pressure do you think will be on? You have a minority coach like Mike Tomlin, and how many offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators did he bring in that were minorities as well? So, do you think if some of these coaches that do get opportunity, we have our guy down there with the Bucks, and there's some guys around the league. Uh, I know the type of guy Stump is. He's going to hire the best guy, but he's also going to be cognizant of what's going on in corporate America and making sure that some guys like
Hmm.
himself get an opportunity. His track record shows that with the Willis situation when he brought in Ashton Grant and some other guys who are still coaching in the NFL right now because of the opportunities Coach Stump Mitchell helped bring to the table. So, Sapphire, do we hold these guys accountable? How many minorities did Mike Tomlin bring to the organization given the he had the power to do so, right? Out of 19 years, we can say that.
Like, I don't know that he was there one? I don't know. That's a great question because for me and my brother was a diehard Steelers fan. I mean, it was like the one thing between us. But as I recall, the first time I even saw a coach of color in that position at Pittsburgh was Mike Tomlin. So I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question. But in this day and age, we again, I'll go back. We talk about analytics. I think that also applies to not only the players, but the coaches. These organizations, we are in an era where they have to sell. It's entertainment more than it is sports anymore. So, from that perspective, I have no idea how that organization or any organization would lean in terms of a responsibility to have a multicultural, representation.
Well, I think Mike has brought in few different defensive coordinators with the Steelers. I don't think he brought any minority offensive coordinators. He had minority position coaches on the offense, tight ends, running backs. I know for sure, but I'm not sure as a coordinator, wide receiver coaches he's had. But I'm not sure as an offensive coordinator he ever did it in his 18 years. I could be wrong. I don't know that, but I don't 19 years I should say. I don't think he's had a minority offense coordinator.
Well, Coach, I bring up this topic because that's why I'm rooting for Ashton Grant so much. I believe the owners they're pretty much the same type of guy, right? These billionaires, that probably live similar lives. And if a young kid that looks like me or Russ or even you, Coach Stump, comes in and has success as a coordinator or as a head coach, I think that itself would open up more doors than the Rooney Rule, because it will look like a cool thing. Like, hey, those guys can get the job done, and for whatever reason, again, you got Coach Bieniemy out there, and again, Coach, I dance on that line. I never try to play going to the race issue, but it is pretty blatant. You take Airbnb, for example, or even a guy like yourself, Coach. There would be a statue outside somewhere, right? We wouldn't be having this conversation about opportunities and head coaching positions. You base it on the merit of the coach and his tenure and what he's done and his track record, right? That will look a lot differently if we're being honest. But coach, I think if we can figure out a way, if they can let a guy or two get in, specifically at these offensive coordinator positions, uh, and they have success, I think that'll open up more doors for others, more than again a Rooney Rule or something to that effect.
Well, I just think the opportunity was there for some players to do something during the George Floyd uh, era. When the situation happened with him, I thought those guys should have gone to the commissioner and said, whenever there is a new uh, football club or a football team that is sold, it had to be owned or operated for the most part by minorities. Okay, either the general manager or head coach. I thought that's what they should have done. And for 5 years, that organization would have had to be ran either by a minority general manager or head coach, and they had to have at least 5 years so they could turn things around. And you had to hire that person. Okay, it had to be owned by minorities, but it definitely had to be ran or operated by a head coach or a general manager. And I said the players, because the Packers is not owned by
Yep.
any one owner. The Packers are owned by people there in Green Bay. So the players could have said, "Look, we're going to invest. We're going to invest in the next franchise that come available as players." They could take that thought process to Roger Goodell, and they could have said, "Look, this is what we want." At that particular point in time, during that time, they were up in arms. They didn't know what was going on. It was a bad situation, and
Hmm.
they were saying for the most part what the players wanted to have. I'm like, take that. You guys be able to invest in owning a team, and now for the rest of your life, you will have capital coming in.
Mhm.
You know, well, they didn't do it, but guess what? Tom Brady did it. He's owning a part of the team. Some other guys are doing it. So actually, what I told those guys to take to leadership of the players, it's actually happening.
Sapphire, George Mallory, hello, my friend. He mentioned Leftwich is another coach that's out
I
there.
love George Mallory. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just love George Mallory. Like, we are yoked. I was just thinking Byron Leftwich. So go ahead. I apologize. I
And
interrupted.
he also made another good point. And coach, I want you to give your comment on this. Our guy Nick Chubb, we root for the Chubster, Batman. I don't care if he played football on another planet. I'm gonna follow up and look at his stats and pay attention to what's going on there. Uh, so Sapphire, did you get a chance to see some of the work that Chubb got to do? I know me and Coach talked about it briefly.
It's so hard. It's so hard to see Nick Chubb in any other uniform than the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I saw his work. I think one of the carries I saw later in the game was like a 5-yard carry. He looked good. He
He
looked like a
did.
strong running back, powerful running back. And it's amazing to me how different a player can look in a Brown system and a Texan system. And it all goes back to the culture, the leadership, the head coach. This is the nightmare that we Browns fans have to live into next season.
Well, Nick said when he was in uh, when he first went to the Texans, it didn't take him long to make the comment that he liked the way the guys work because that's who Nick has always been. He's always been a worker. When he was at Georgia, he was a worker. The
Mm-hmm.
Browns just inherited a worker, and he was starting because Joe was hurt, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't even play for him this year. And they had just signed Joe to a contract this off season. But then Nick no longer became the starter. They went with Marks. But when you take a look at it, Marks had 196 carries for 703 yards, two touchdowns, and his average is 3.6. When Nick was playing, Nick ended up with 122 carries for 506 yards, 4.1 average, and three touchdowns. Okay, so Nick did his job. This guy still, even though he's playing more, his average wasn't as good as Nick's. Okay, so they made a change. It's no big deal. Last night I saw them using Nick primarily
Third
as the
down.
blocking back on third down, but he did get an opportunity to get some carries. So it's all working out for Nick. But again, his Nick's average was better than uh, the guys average
Juggins.
with yeah, with the Browns. Uh, but Junkin he's a good back, but they did not need to draft Junkin. They needed to draft offensive lineman and a receiver. That's what to help the offense. That's the way they needed to go, not drafting backs. They could have brought Nick back and Jerome averaged over 5 yards a carry. I think it was like 5.4 last year. But yet you want to replace him. Give me a break. That was
Well, coach,
silly.
respectfully, I think having a stump mention in the locker room would have helped that as well. So we're not just going to leave that out. I mean, you don't have to. I'll say it. I'm going to say it, but I want to go into the playoff matchups next week. Buffalo versus at Denver, San Francisco at Seattle, Houston at the Patriots, and the Rams at Chicago. Uh, what are your picks in those games? Sapphire, you go first. Who do you have? Uh, who do you have winning those games? Anything stand out?
Okay, so I'm sticking with the defenses. So I'm going to take Denver over the Bills, Seahawks over the Niners, Houston over the Patriots, and the Rams over the Bears.
Coach,
I tell you what, man, Sean Payton is a heck of a coach. Their defense is playing well right now. Uh, Buffalo definitely have the advantage in terms of playing experience, in terms of quarterback. But I just think Sean Payton going to find a way for Denver to make it happen. Their defense is playing extremely well. They just got to make sure the quarterback plays well. I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I mean, Sam was with the Jets. I was there when he started his career, and let me tell you, we as coaches got to do our job. We got to get the guys to play, and I don't. We had a good defense with the Jets. We just didn't do it offensively, and Sam was a part of just a wrong place, well, right place, wrong time. I should say it just didn't happen. Me being a player, an ex-player, a lot that goes on really has a lot to do with what type of coach that you have. I had coaches and I also had players that I played behind who saw that I could play. One coach hated me the first time. It was only because of the player that I was able to make the team. And then I got a coach who thought I could play. And things turn. Right now I'm the second leading all time rusher, or I should say, yardage guy in Cardinals history behind Larry Fitzgerald. And I was the second leading rusher behind Otis Anderson. May still be there. Connor was close, but he got hurt, so I don't know if he was able to do it. But that was because a coach fell in love with me. Even though I was a lower draft pick, I was able
Hmm.
to do some things. You know, they drafted some guys ahead of Larry Centers. And when the Cardinals let me go, I told Larry Centers, I said, Larry Centers, let me tell you something. You're the best running back on this team, even though they drafted a guy in the first round and maybe one in the fourth round. I said, but those guys, they can't replace me. I said, but you could. He said, uh, Mr. Mitchell, you believe that? I'm like, Larry, I'm telling you, man. And now if you go back and you take a look at Larry Center's stuff with the Cardinals, those guys that were before him, they didn't do anything. But Larry took the program to another level. You have to be able to identify people, you know. And I just think Sean Payton can get it done. Uh, the Pats, they've been playing well, but the Texans, they just went to Pittsburgh, so they're not worrying about the cold. That defense is going to be tough. I don't think 16 points is going to be enough to beat Houston uh, because the defense, those guys rally, they make plays. Drake May is having a fantastic deal, but I think their defense, they're going to have a spy on Drake because the one thing he will do, he'll take off and make some plays with his legs. That's going to be one heck of a game in LA at Chicago. I just think, you know, Chicago gonna find a way to win. I just believe they're gonna find a way to win. You got to defend everything, and Caleb really made some off schedule plays for the Bears this past game. Matthew Stafford, no question, he's pretty good, but he's thrown some picks.
Yep.
Know, he's thrown some picks, and I just like the way Chicago or defense is playing. You know, and like I said, those guys believe if they can stay in the game, don't let it get away from them. They and their fans now believe, and they'll find a way to win at the end.
Russ, who you got winning each playoff game?
I'm with Coach Stump. I'm gonna start take his lead. I like Chicago. Not sure what the weather will be like this weekend, but it's gonna be cold in Cleveland, so I assume it's gonna be cold in Chicago.
Hmm.
Bears have the opportunistic defense. They'll force some turnovers. And I think Caleb will make some plays. I think they will stick with. I like Ben Johnson's offense. They'll stick with the running game. He'll get creative. So I'll take the Bears. Not sure how close that. I'm sure it'll be close. It'll come down to the end. I think Caleb will make a play late. Um, I like Houston on the road. Just love their defense. I think the Patriots' offensive line is beat up and they get after the quarterback. So I think they're gonna give Drake May some fits. I just think CJ maybe he'll bounce. He'll see what he made mistakes on against Pittsburgh and make those plays against the Patriots. I'm with Seattle. San Fran is beat up. They just lost Kittle, so I'm rolling with Seattle with that, and I'll take Denver against Buffalo. I'm not a Josh Allen fan. I think he's I won't speak on him. I just think Denver's defense will make plays.
Got you. Well, let's talk about. I want to get you guys' pick as we wrap up our show here.
Oh, wait, did you give your picks?
You know what? So I'm just gonna say I'm going with L.A. Chicago's quarterback paints his fingernails. I can't go with a guy like that. I'm a
He
little old
stopped. He
fashioned.
stopped paying them, bro. I checked him out. Post
He did it already, and I saw it, and I can't get it out of my head. So I'm going with the man. The leader of men cannot paint his fingernails. This is not what kosher to me in the
did
culture of football.
wait? Did,
Um,
did did you see his post game speech though? Did you see that?
I once I saw the nails, I blocked out everything he does. I can't go for a guy like that. And I'm going with the Patriots because I anything that comes up under the Stump umbrella, I'm with Ashton, Nick Chubb. You know what I mean? I'm going with I'm going with the guys that I want to see win in life, and I guess I'm betting with my heart, not my brain. So I'm gonna go with the Patriots. I'm gonna go with Seattle. Coach has talked about Sam Darnold, and is kind of stuck behind what he thinks of him. And then again, I'm gonna go with Denver because of the head coach Peyton, as Coach mentioned, and also I think the Buffalo quarterback they're trying to force feed him is to be the next great, and I just don't. I think there's an agenda there that I'm just not. It's not agreeing with my soul. So I think Josh Allen's a good player, but they're force feeding him down our throats as well. So those are my picks.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
in regards to the college football championship, uh, I'm gonna go first. I'm going for the upset. I can already hear Stump's voice, so we already know what he's gonna say. But I'm going with the Miami Hurricanes. Um, I think Mendoza is. I just don't see what everybody else sees. I'm not a quarterback guru. I think he's stiff. I think his reads. I just don't see that translating. Again, you guys probably know a little bit more than I do. I'm a gut guy, and to me, I think Mendoza is a little overrated. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. So I'm going with the Hurricanes to win the college football championship. Russ, who you got?
I take Indiana. I
You
think the Buckeyes gave Indiana probably their best shot. Miami, solid team. I like how they run the ball, but I think all their weaknesses will be exposed by Indiana.
Sapphire, who you got?
I'm taking the U.
You matter. Bernie Kosar be watching. You matter, baby.
I saw that game, by the way. I watched it. Okay. Yeah,
Coach
absolutely.
Stump. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sapphire.
No, I was just gonna say, listen, the table is set. They're playing at home, and there's something about the way their defense hit.
Great point. See, Sapphire, you've always. You, I knew you had it first basic test
You
when I
know,
first
you
met
know
you.
Mendoza's at home too.
One against many.
That
It's
one
going to
can
the
really
Hornets,
drop.
baby.
That one control. He has the keys. He controls the game.
Coach Stump, what's going to happen
Well,
in the college football championship?
well, I would love for Miami to win, but I don't think they are. There's a guy by the name of George Baez that's part of that Hurricanes staff that coached
Mm-hmm.
for me at Southern University. So I would definitely love to see him win, but I just don't see it. And I love Mendoza. I was talking to Russ about the game. He knows where ball placement needs to be. He's a physical runner. He's kind of like Josh Allen.
Mm.
I think he throws the ball extremely well. He's got great size. He runs. He can do what he need to do. I think when stuff break down, he knows right now I'm taking off. I think he's a heck of a player. I think they win by more than 10 points personally.
I think
I just think
looking.
the offensive line, those guys, they're going to run the ball. They move people off the ball, and Signetti, I think, is a hell of a coach. He's the type of guy who, when you look at him, he's no nonsense. He's got that face where
Yeah,
guys understand what we got to do. If I was a dang on Raiders and I had the first pick, I would try to get a guy that had moved from place to place to place after 2 or 3 years and be my next head coach because I know I got the first round pick. Right now, I'm bringing a coach and a player that's on the same page, and I'm also bringing those coaches that have helped me along the way move from one level to the next level, and all they know is that I win.
facts.
Wow.
Well, we'll see if this ages well. What's your guy's name? Baez, coach?
Yeah,
Baez. We're going for Baez, Ashton Grant,
no, I'm
Chuck.
I'm going. Trust me, I'm saying Indiana's going to win. I would
I
love
heard
for,
you.
but
I'm going with
I'm
our
picking
guys.
Indiana.
Baez, be watching. I'm sticking with you, bro. I'm loyal to my people. But all right. Well, we had a great show tonight. We'll talk next week and culmination of the playoffs. The college football championship is next Monday, the 19th at 7:30 on ESPN. We want to send our prayers to Bernie. He's been in and out the hospital since his transplant. It looks like this last mishap was minor, but we definitely want to send him our prayers. Um, Coach, will give you the last words. This is your show, buddy.
Bro, it's just like Russ said. Mendoza is home too. He's less than 5 miles from where they're playing.
Hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of people. And trust me, Indiana is not known for football. It's known for basketball. It's going to be a lot of football people there. Indiana folks all over the world trying to get down to Miami because it's the first time, and never know if it's going to happen again. Especially if Coach leaves and go to the NFL.
Mark
But yeah.
Cuban bought all the seats up, so it'll be full of red.
Oh yeah.
George and Jen, thank you for joining us. You know what, Saphyr? I can't let that slide. Remind them who has home field advantage for the college football championship, please.
The U.
I don't think they heard you the first time.
The U.
Don't be surprised if you see a lot of red.
There'll be a lot of red.
They're gonna offer some money for them tickets, and you know what? Some people might say, "I'll watch it from home."
Yep.
We'll see about that. Have a good night, everybody.
Good
Have a
night.
good night.